Good morning, Justin. How are you? Happy Monday.
Howdy, springtime has sprung here in the mountains of West Virginia.
And we are eating shrimp cocktail out of the frunk of what vehicle? What is going on in your background today?
Here we have a delicious Ford Mustang Mach-E.
Is there like an internet meme or something that I'm just not aware of? Like what is this?
This is called marketing gold. I mean, why else would you need a front trunk other than to serve ice cold shrimp cocktails?
Porsche's been doing that for years, actually, if I'm not mistaken. That's what Porsche owners do with their frunks.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk a lot about Ford today. They've made some interesting marketing choices, but I think they're on to something with their new model, which is Ford Model E.
Yeah, all right. And let's disambiguate. Ford Model E is not a model at all, but it is a model in the sense of a business model. Let's talk about Ford Model E, Justin. It was announced a month or 6 weeks ago now. What is Ford Model E?
Yeah, time flies. A few months ago, Ford announced that we finally know the reason why Tesla was not able to claim the Model E name. Ford and Tesla actually did get into a bit of a back and forth about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, because Tesla wanted to use the name Model E for one of their vehicles. Ford said, nope, we've already claimed that, and we now know why. Ford has already split into two divisions, still under the Ford Motor umbrella. We've got Ford Model E for all electric sales. We'll talk about their new and interesting sales model here in a minute. And then you've got Ford Blue, which is for the combustion branch of their sales. So as of right now, combustion sales obviously still makes up over 95% of Ford's overall sales, but they claim that by 2026, 600,000 fully electric vehicles will be sold under the Ford Model E umbrella. And that's pretty soon. That's just a few years away. Something's got to happen, right?
Did Ford also say, was it 2040 when ICE vehicles were no longer going to be in their lineup and it was going to be full EV, or am I making that up?
So for the United States, they have not made such bold claims, but General Motors has said by 2035. Now, Ford is pretty sure that by 2035, they're going to be fully electric in Europe, because Ford does have a pretty significant presence in Europe under a few different brand names. But in the US, they're not making such bold claims as far as I know. I'm sure they don't want to upset all of their millions of truck owners out there.
Let's dive into the specifics of Model E because it is going to look, feel, and be very different than the buying experience you get with Ford Blue. What are the biggest differences between Model E and Ford Blue?
So Ford has clearly taken a big page, maybe a chapter out of Tesla's model and the successes they've had selling direct to consumer. So with Model E, dealers would not hold inventory. That's a huge change. Instead, dealers will become the facilitators for the delivery of all electric vehicles, the orders of which would be placed online, supposedly without any dealer markups, just MSRP. So I guess MSRP kind of just loses its meaning in this case, right? It's just the
Yeah,
price.
yeah,
It's just the price.
yeah. Now it's just the price. What a crazy concept.
So this is exactly what Tesla does. With Tesla, you can place an order in a few minutes on their website, and then you'll get notified when it arrives. Then you show up at a Tesla service center and pick up your vehicle, learn how to use it, and drive off. Ford is following that playbook with Model E. Now, are dealers going away? Well, I don't know about you, Zach, but I'm not qualified to work on my Hyundai Ioniq 5 electric vehicle in my garage. There's a lot of dangerous electrical components, and certified trained technicians will always be needed to work on these electric vehicles for Ford. So the thinking goes that, at least for the foreseeable future, which, times are changing quickly, Ford will continue to need their dealers for Model E's uh, deliveries, maintenance, things like that.
It becomes super interesting though, Justin. I mean, we're in business here at YAA, right? Like we're always thinking about different ways that we can try and build revenues, keep expenses down, provide value to people. If I'm Ford, what value does the dealership provide? Sure, the last mile delivery. Okay, but what's stopping Ford from, I don't know, hooking up with FedEx at a certain point? You know what I mean? Like there are other logistics. Is a dealership really the best logistics company? Probably not. So it's like you can kind of eventually see a path where they check that box and probably find a cheaper way to do it. And then on the servicing side, I'm also not qualified to work on any vehicle. I just dropped off my girlfriend's car this morning. I get me away from that. I don't want to be near it. However, talking to really qualified people like AMD, the car care nut, he's made it crystal clear. It's still just a car. Sure, if there's electrical issues with the batteries, yeah, you need to have special tech, maybe not special technology, but the right pieces of equipment to be able to interact with that. But it's still just a car. You could take it down the street. You could still get work done on it if you need to get work done on it. I'm not convinced that Ford Model E isn't Ford waving the flag to their dealer body. Right now, they're saying, hey, nothing's going to change. Well, except you're not going to have inventory and you can't mark up the prices. But I can't look at this and not think that it's planting the seed for, I don't know, 2030, 2035. Hey, nothing's going to change, guys. Nothing's going to change. Oh, wait, everything changed. Like, that's what I foresee over the next decade.
I look forward to having Ray on the show so we can debate this with him, because I think we know where he stands on this. But when it comes down to it, Ford CEO and President Jim Farley made a little announcement back in early March, which is when Ford Model E was announced. He said, "The reality is," I quote, "our legacy organization has been holding us back. We need to change." Well, what could he be responding to there? Could he be responding to Tesla's massive success, still retaining 75% of EV market share in the United States? Could he be responding to the fact that Ford's executives are seeing a lot of their profits just kind of slide over to the dealership arm, where Ford could be capitalizing on those increased MSRPs, taking more of that money for themselves, right? I mean, what do you think, Zach? Is it a combination of everything?
It's definitely a combination. I also think Farley was probably speaking to the way that they've thought about building and designing vehicles. I wouldn't be surprised, and I hope this comes to fruition. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Ford take a leap in front of some of their competitors, i.e. GM, because of the way that they've restructured and reoriented around. And really, I think they've gone more all in than GM and every headline Mary Barra says. I feel like Ford is actually really going for it. And this restructuring is an example of, we're not going to be beholden to there's a great quote, "What got us here isn't going to get us there." Farley's open to that. Can they execute? That's the question.
So Ford hopes that Model E will attract and retain the best engineers and software developers to bring autonomous driving into the mix, over-the-air updates where you can actually stay at home for the OTA update. Right now, many of the legacy automakers who claim to have OTA updates, they still require you to actually go into the dealership to hook up to the Wi-Fi and get that done. That's not really an OTA update, right?
Because your brake pads need to get changed too.
Yeah, you're right. You got to make sure and do a 100-point inspection, right? So
Yes.
it's just so interesting because here we have Ford with this novel model, which they've actually just piggybacked off Tesla, but hey, it works for Tesla. However, you've got GM's Ultium platform that's going to be directly competing with Ford's EVs starting now. And GM's Ultium platform actually has several advantages over everything that Ford has announced so far. They can charge almost twice as fast over on the GM side. So the Silverado EV is going to have some advantages from the get-go over the Ford F-150 Lightning. The Silverado EV is also going to have more payload and more bed space. It can actually be quite adaptable. So it's going to be interesting in 2024, 2025, when we have Ford Model E and this new sales model cranking out their EVs direct to consumer, apparently without markups. However, are you making compromises? Would you rather go with a GM with a 20-minute charge time, more payload capacity, more towing capacity, but you might have to pay a markup? It's just going to be so interesting to see how the other automakers adapt and respond to what Ford is doing here.
I just tossed in the chat the link to our own car search because Ford F-150 Lightnings that are eventually going to be sold by Ford Model E. So many different things to keep in mind here. They're being sold at dealerships right now. The first ones have made it off the production lines for retail consumers, and they are being marked up like crazy. And it's incredible to see here that in the future state, that won't be able to happen because the price, not the MSRP, just the price will be the price. And so right now, it's a perfect example of dealerships operating in the same principles they've always operated in, which is, I want to make as much money as I possibly can today. Whatever happens in the future happens in the future. I feel like this almost validates Ford's decision.
Yeah, so let's take a look at car search on joinyaa.com. What is the markup that we're seeing? Because I'm curious.
Here, I've got it pulled up
We'll
right
compare
here.
it to MSRP. So I've got that pulled up.
All right, what's MSRP on a Lariat? Because we've got Lariats right here.
67,474.
Cool. I'm not even sorting by highest to lowest. Everyone is at least, wow, either 80, 90. Here you go for a Pro. 75.
For a Pro.
80.
So the Pro is supposed to start at 39.9.
Are you serious?
Yes, you can check it out at joinyaa.com. F-150 Lightning pricing guide.
Wow. Yeah, here you go. You've got the Pro, and your out the door price is going to be $80,090.
So this is unfortunate, and I'm saying this as an environmental.
Wait, I'm going to sort by highest to lowest. Give me 1 second here, Justin. I'm nervous now.
Whoa.
There you go. Wow.
Platinum. So the Platinum supposedly starts MSRP of 90,800.
Yeah, so
Wow.
MSRP on this one's 92 grand, marked up to 117. And let's just do this. We don't have the integration done yet. What dealership was this? This was Citrus Motors Ford. Let's see. Let's see if we have any dealer reviews. I'm very curious. Let's see. This is like, eventually this will all be integrated. So maybe when you're on this page, you can see the dealer reviews and vice versa. But let's see.
We're checking the dealer reviews, everyone.
No reviews.
Wow.
Someone should leave a review. Maybe I'll leave the first review that says they are charging 17 or 27 or whatever the number was, $1,000 above MSRP on new F-150 Lightnings. Wow.
Having a one-stop shop for dealer reviews is really a game changer. So if you're thinking about buying a car, you're just curious to see just how much people are getting ripped off or maybe being treated nicely, definitely check out YAA Car Dealer Reviews. It's just an amazing resource. My mind is blown by it.
Dude, the moment that all that synced together, so when you're on the actual vehicle that you're looking at, and then you can see what the markups are and what other YA members have like experienced, chef's kiss. But anyway, we got a ways to go for that. But Justin, this, am I not right? This is validation for Ford's decision to say you're not going to have inventory and you're not going to be able to tell what the prices are.
100%, because I believe, as our wonderful Ray Shefska has pointed out, within the contracts and the agreements that dealers have with automakers, it basically says that, yeah, MSRP is what we hope you'll sell it for, but we really can't make you, right? That's why it's manufacturer suggested retail price. Am I right?
You're 100% right. And that's why manufacturer's suggested retail price under Ford Model E becomes just, well, the manufacturer's price, which is what it should be. But let's be very clear here. It is not all rainbows and unicorns the moment Ford vertically integrates like Tesla does. If we know anything, it's that capitalism is a great drug, and it means that they're going to find ways to make as much money as possible. And we have to be prepared for that. Like, we as consumers need to be prepared to have alternatives to the Ford extended warranty, the Ford insurance product, whatever the heck it may be.
Yeah, and on a personal note, I'm an environmental advocate, and I know that there are many uncertainties and concerns with the production of EVs, especially the mining that goes into battery production. But still, all the research that we've seen shows that after about 2 years of EV ownership for the average American driver, after just 2 years, driving an electric vehicle is better for the environment than a combustion vehicle. Now, that's great, right? But most consumers actually care about savings in their wallet, and I do too. That's totally understandable. When you're looking at a Ford F-150 Lightning that's costing $90,000 to $120,000, over $20,000 over MSRP, that's a huge markup. That just negates the cost savings. I mean, if you're, I guess, a tree hugger like me, and you want to make sure that you're driving a truck around that's not releasing direct tailpipe emissions, then great. It's still great for the environment. But you're not going to be saving money for years and years if you're paying $20,000 over MSRP, especially if you could go out and get the combustion equivalent for $50,000 or $60,000 versus $80,000 to $120,000.
Do you think GM's going to come out with their GM whatever plan, which is exactly like Ford Model E? I'll be the flag. I've been surprised. Ford made this announcement, what, 6 weeks ago now? Maybe 8, maybe 2 months ago?
It was early March.
Okay, so 2 months ago. Yeah, 2 months ago. Um, I'm surprised we haven't seen another manufacturer come out and do the same thing yet. I think it's only a matter of time. What do you think?
My prediction is that GM will make an equivalent announcement closer to the arrival of the Silverado EV. Ford is way ahead of GM when it comes to the release of their electric truck. We'll be looking at mid to late 2023 for the first Silverado EVs to be heading to dealerships. I think that will happen in about a year's time.
Let's jump to the chat here for a couple minutes, Justin, and then I know we've got a few other things that we wanted to touch on today. Susanna Moss, aka Bahamian Lily, people are going to have mukbangs in the frunk. Now, I never thought I'd say that ever. Period. That sentence. But Justin, your background really helped us. And Happy Hippo says, "Is that shrimp cocktail behind Justin?" It is indeed.
We need to get a better look at this for the viewers. For the viewers. It is an entire shrimp cocktail in the spacious frunk of the Mustang Mach-E. And you know what's amazing? The Mustang Mach-E was the second highest selling electric SUV in the United States last year. Ford sold 27,000 Mustang Mach-Es. That's a lot. But you know what? You know what their secret to success is?
Producing them. Shrimp.
They've clearly got their marketing down.
Graham's got a good question here. Is there any further discussion on EV cars being, quote, too quiet?
Yes, all new EVs have to come with a device that is a pedestrian safety device that basically makes a sound. My Hyundai Ioniq 5 makes a spaceshipy sound whenever it's creeping under 25 miles per hour. I've actually noticed it turns off at 23 miles per hour. I'm guessing that's because it's engineered in kilometer speak rather than miles per hour speak. But in my opinion, my own Hyundai Ioniq 5 is still far too quiet for pedestrian safety. It really is. So US regulations and of course international regulations are focusing on this. I believe in Europe, the regulations are a bit more strict, requiring higher volume from these electric vehicles at a low speed because Europe is a much more pedestrian friendly and pedestrian centric area, right? But yeah, that's definitely going to be the focus. And back in like 2015, there were some silent electric vehicles. And as you can imagine, that's quite dangerous. What about the Tesla Cybertruck? That's a gigantic stainless steel tank. You can't have that silently crawling through city streets, right? That'd be terrifying.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Phil is 100% right. The Mach-E, take it to your next college football frunk gate. I don't know, man. It's going to take me a while to really buy into all this frunking. But anyway, there we go.
I barely even use my own frunk. I barely even use it. Only for stinky takeout food.
You put the stinky takeout in the frunk?
Yeah, because I don't want my beautiful cabin to smell like whatever strange foods I eat. But if you have a Mustang Mach-E, your frunk is going to smell like shrimp.
Neil says, will the cost of a battery ever drop drastically?
Great question, Neil. So Tesla has achieved $100 per kilowatt hour battery production cost. That was the gold standard that engineers had been shooting for like over a decade. However, we've now seen nickel prices skyrocket, lithium prices skyrocket. All the different components that go into making an EV are now unfortunately reversing that trend and sending battery prices back up. Until they can drop back down, EVs are not going to get any more affordable, which is really tragic to me because I love EVs. Not only are they at least somewhat better for the environment, they're a lot of fun to drive and a lot more affordable to fuel. And I really hope that affordability is not too far down the road, but we're going to need to get those battery prices down.
You know, one thing I haven't asked you, but just popped in my head. What's your insurance cost like on the Ioniq 5? Is it competitive?
So I have a no accident history, pat on the back, no tickets, and it's $50 a month for the Ioniq 5. I'm serious. I can provide the receipts. Yes. And a part of that is because with my insurance provider, I've been with them for like 5 or 6 years and they give you like that loyalty stuff. But yeah, $50 a month and I could prove it, Zach.
That's fantastic. Phil in the chat saying my Ford Lightning build week is 5/30, so later this month, and I'm paying MSRP, getting the Pro with all major options for $47,000, including the $7,500 tax credit. Phil, pretty please go to joinyaa.com/car-dealer-reviews. Leave a review of that dealership. If they're selling at MSRP, that's a beautiful thing. We want more people to be aware of that. Emily in the chat, Justin. Hood gating rather than frunk gating?
Sounds a little shady. And by the way, Phil, make sure you get that in writing, Phil. Get that in writing, preferably signed by the sales manager, because I mean that sounds almost too good to be true, but I hope it's real.
I hope it's real too. Happy Hippo in the chat here. I heard that the Tesla LFP battery drains faster in colder climates than the current battery. Is that true?
I don't know. All I know about the
Interesting
Tesla
question.
LFP battery, it's lithium iron phosphate, is that it's supposed to be able to charge up to 100% consistently and maintain optimum battery health. With most other battery chemistries, it's recommended to charge to 80 to 90% and only over 80% when you actually need that range traveling in order to optimize battery longevity. But I'm not sure about that. I'll have to look into it.
Interesting question. RB has a question here. Are you allowed to direct sell in all states? I think, our manufacturers, what is it, Justin? I think there's 14 states that have some form of legislation, either passed or proposed. You might know better than I do.
17. Yeah.
17. Okay.
Yeah, so for example, Tesla is now headquartered in Austin, Texas. Tesla cannot sell direct to consumer in its home state. Cannot do that in Texas. Georgia, Rivian is building a $2 billion factory around Atlanta, Georgia. They cannot sell direct to consumer in that state. It's a big problem. I mean, here in West Virginia, where I live, I can't buy a Tesla if I wanted to direct from them. I'd have to go out of state to do it.
Yeah, it really is pretty interesting how in many states where they're being produced, you actually can't go ahead and purchase directly from the OEM there. However, I'd be surprised, especially with the Ford Model E topic that we've been discussing, if you don't see more lobbying to allow for OEMs to sell directly to consumer. I think that's the wave of the future.
I want to bring up insurance for one more minute. We've got a
Yeah,
comment
please.
from Tom saying that his e-tron insurance is very reasonable. He's had it for 3 years now. So what I've noticed playing around with insurance quotes is that if your electric vehicle is like a bona fide sports car, such as a Tesla Model 3 Performance, and maybe even a Tesla Model 3 just dual motor all-wheel drive, your insurance quote will be 2 or 3 times higher than it is for like my Ioniq 5 or maybe Tom's e-tron. I've seen people with solid driving records having Tesla insurance that's over $150 a month. Maybe they just have a bad insurance provider, but just keep in mind if you're shopping for an EV, if it's a sports car, you will pay for it when it comes to insurance.
Yeah, and that's primarily because it's a sports car, not because it's an EV.
Certainly.
Now, one thing I do want to mention actually here on the show, August, we should have our own YAA auto insurance marketplace where you'll be able to put in your information in one place, get quotes from everyone. We're currently negotiating with some carriers. Hopefully we can get some preferred rates. So anyway, planting a little seed there. Obviously want to be able to provide the best rates possible to our community. Now, Justin, there was one other comment here, and I want to try and find this article so I can pull it up, but it's from PFunk. How much will the MSRP increase due to the war? Russia is a major supplier of nickel, which means batteries will get way more expensive. Also, aluminum prices have risen recently too. There's an article I want to find from Automotive News, and I'm going to search for it here in a second when I hand off to you, that talked about the raw materials costs are astronomically higher for EVs than they are for internal combustion engine vehicles. But what are your thoughts about MSRPs? Do you think they're going to go up?
I think they are going to go up. And I'll be honest, that's one of the reasons I purchased my Ioniq 5 this year rather than waiting for a better 2023 model. It's because I'm sure 2023's EV models will be better. They might have better range and other additional features, but I am quite confident that MSRPs are going to go up by a few $1,000s across the board. So maybe hopefully you'll get something for that. But Zach, as you'll see on the Automotive News article, all of these raw material prices have gone up by at some points like 1,000%. That was temporary, but on these exchanges where raw materials purchasers are buying these materials to send to their factories, if you happen to buy nickel on that day that it's 1,000% higher in price, you're gonna have to pass that cost down to the consumers, right?
And I'm trying my hardest to find this article. I'm not going to be able to find it, but it is pretty clear from that article. I think it was $3,600 in raw material costs for ICE vehicles, and was it $8,000 or something like that in raw materials costs for EVs? If you have the article handy, Justin.
No, it was approximately those figures. Let's stick with that, and we'll correct if necessary. But it was roughly $4,000 to $5,000 raw material cost increase for combustion, and then double that for electric vehicles.
Exactly. So if you don't expect MSRPs on EVs to go up anytime soon, it does bring into question. And I talked to my dad about this frequently. We were out to dinner on Saturday night before our Saturday night stream. We were talking about it's like there will never be a cost effective. I mean, I don't want to say cost effective. There will never be an attainable EV. I
So
don't see it. The
I'm
Kid Nero is the only thing.
I'm going to be so interested to see what happens with GM's new Chevy Equinox EV plans that they claim will start under 35,000 before a future tax credit that would hopefully be reinstated for GM. Right now, they don't qualify for the tax credit. But is that even can they make a profit on a let's say a $33,000 EV? They might just have to eat the cost to jack their sales numbers up. I mean, they might be just taking one for the team in hopes of catching up to Tesla, at least in terms of sales numbers. I'm not quite sure.
We kind of saw Mercedes-Benz do an interesting strategy where it was like, we want to catch up and we also want to go down market a little bit when they brought the A-Class over to the United States. And that's gone away. The A-Class is no longer in the United States. And it was like, we want to go a little more mass market. We want a lower price point. We want to get people attracted to our brand earlier, younger, so that when they make more money, they stick with us. I don't see how that works with EVs. I don't see how you can get one to a price point that just pencils. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm intimidated to spend that much money on a new car. I don't see. I mean, the Solterra pricing that just came out, 40, 42, 46. What was the starting MSRP?
46,000. And we've got to talk about that powertrain. We've got a few minutes left, and I really want to talk about the powertrain that the Solterra and Toyota BZ4X share. Shall we?
I got one comment before we do.
Okay, let's do it.
Look at the Acura Integra. Pricing was just announced for the Acura Integra. $32,000 with a destination fee of like $1,100. Will you run into dealer markups? Yeah, absolutely. But that's a huge price gap. I'm not saying the Solterra is comparable to an Integra, nor am I saying the BZ4X is comparable to an Integra. But for folks that are looking for, I don't know, a sub $50,000, sub $40,000 price point, you're going to have to look at ICE, which is unfortunate. But yes.
Yeah, it really comes down to length of ownership. So if you plan on keeping the car for a decade, like hopefully I do, or if you care a lot about the environment like I do, which I'm basically paying a premium to drive around with no emissions coming from the tailpipe. I know that electricity comes from somewhere, but still, like, you're paying a premium for these types of things, whereas it's just really unfortunate that EVs are not affordable, and that's really going to affect our ability to reach these sales targets that different automakers are claiming. 100% EVs by 2035 is what GM claims. How is that going to happen with 50, 60, $80,000 EVs being the norm?
Tax credits.
Yeah, a $30,000 tax credit.
Hey man, if inflation keeps going, maybe. Let's talk a little bit about the platform that the BZ4X and the Solterra share, and then we'll call it a day, Justin.
Yeah. So I'll just start out by saying I'm really disappointed. I'm really sad, Zach. You know why? Because Toyota has long been known for their mastery of the hybrid powertrain. Before we had mainstream EVs, hybrids were the electric vehicles, right? And after a very long wait, Toyota and Subaru partnered to create their first fully electric vehicles, released this year, the Toyota BZ4X, which starts at about $42,000 pre-tax credit, and the Subaru Solterra, a standard all-wheel drive, starts at about $46,000. The styling isn't for me, but that's besides the point. The interior is not for me, but once again, that's not what matters. Let's talk about the battery powertrain. So the first charging tests are out on YouTube. I know Out of Spec Motoring, one of my very favorite electric vehicle media out there, they did a 0 to 100% charging test with a brand new all-wheel drive 2023 Toyota BZ4X. And from 0 to 90%, it took like 70 minutes. It was well over an hour. My Ioniq 5 can do that in about 30 minutes, 0 to 90%. Now, if you're talking about getting from 0 to 99%, because as you get to the top of the battery, there's always a lot of battery management system conditioning going on to make sure that the electricity is allocated to the correct battery cells without damaging the battery. Well, at 99%, we were looking at about an hour and a half.
Wow.
That is crazy. Keep in mind that Kia and Hyundai's brand new platform, the eGMP platform, it can do 10 to 80% in 18 minutes. So whenever I'm traveling, I regularly stop at a charger like once every 180 to 200 miles. I charge for about 25 minutes to get back up to about 90%, and then I continue my journey. Nobody's going to do that and wait around for 1 to 1.5 hours. Nobody's going to do that. So honestly, I'm going to make a bold statement. I do not recommend these two EVs. I hope you shop elsewhere, at least try other vehicles. Think about what your ownership experience would be like. If you don't travel at all, maybe it's fine. But we know what Subaru cares about. My wife has a Subaru Forester. They're all about outdoor adventure, going off the beaten path. How are you going to go off the beaten path if you have a 227-mile range in optimal conditions? Let's say 150 on a cold day. Hopefully you find a charger, and if you do, you're going to be sitting there for over an hour. That does not sound very fun.
I don't know, man. You and I have different definitions of adventure. That sounds like it
Yeah,
could be a heck of an adventure.
I guess. Yeah. Well, keep in mind that Electrify America stations happen to be in Walmart parking lots. That's an
Keep
adventure.
keep in mind that Electrify America stations don't always work, so that's also an adventure.
Yes, touring America one Walmart at a time.
Justin, let's call it a show for today. You are going to have a special guest host on Wednesday. I'm not available, neither is Pop. So it seems like we're doing the planning right now, but you and Justice should be live on the show. Really looking forward to that. Can't wait to watch the replay. Thanks for your time today, and I'll see you back on Friday, but I look forward to tuning in on Wednesday.
Yes, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Send us your
See you,
questions.
Justin. Yes, please do. Community forum. It's blowing up. We love to see it. Send more in. You got a parting shot? All you. No more shrimp cocktail.